Hey guys, Texas Garden Guy here, and we just got done repotting this giant Buddha belly. This video is up on my Instagram and TikTok, so you can watch that there. But we also have these guys we're going to be repotting. So I wanted to do this a full video showing you how I do it, how we break everything up, and kind of go in a little more detail. So I get a lot of comments on my short form saying that I don't go to enough detail. So make sure you're following here on the YouTube side, on the long form side, to see a little more detail on what's going on. I'm calling these guys the sisters, and this is no joke either. These are three rather large Buddha bellies. I got these from a guy who, I met him at the Houston Cactus and Succulent Society. I'm not gonna throw out his name, or I'm not gonna say like what I paid for these, but very, very reasonable. The guy who owns the mother plant of these has a really large one that keeps in the ground and it throws seeds out. And so plants like this are like a year old. They grow like this big in a year in the ground. So if you have a Buddha belly, a Jatropha podagrica, you can grow them in the ground and they grow exponentially faster than in a pot. So I'll probably be using one of these as an experiment next year. Maybe put it in my front flower bed in like a smart pot and burying it and let it kind of go nuts, and that way I can pull it up in the wintertime. But let's go ahead and we'll get a tray out here. We'll dump these out, get them separated, and we're going to split them up and repot them all separately. This right here is one of my favorite tools in the garden. It is a cement mixing tray that you get like a Lowe's or Home Depot, and it is fantastic when you're repotting stuff like in the garage or on the tailgate of your truck and you don't want to make a mess. You can just take your pot, dump it in here, and it's kind of like just keeps everything contained. So I love these mixing trays. I got a smaller one in my garage as well that I use, but these little cement mixing tray sleds are fantastic for stuff like this. So quick little tip right there. So I'm gonna grab these Buddha bellies and we're gonna kind of lay them down. Try to pull these out, not disturbing them too much. Like some sansevieria or some aloe growing in there. There was growing in there. So that guy goes and pulls these up every year. He gets these from that guy like every single year, the pups. The seed grown stuff that is left over. And man, these are some crazy roots on them. Crazy roots. And you see, I said earlier, there's aloe and stuff growing in here. Try to keep some of that separate. I don't want anything popping up voluntarily. But there we go. Look at that. Look at the roots on them. There's one. Two, that's a big one. Wow, they're huge. Two, oh my god, look at the size of those roots. It's pretty wild. There's another one. Three of them right there. All right, so you can see the soil is a little bit really damp. It's holding a lot of moisture, and that's fine if you're going to keep your Buddha belly or other plants under an awning where they're not going to get a lot of rain. But I kind of keep my stuff out in the open, so I'm going to be adding stuff that's going to help with drainage, so I can keep it out in the open here in the Houston area where we get a lot of rain. So I need my stuff quick draining, so we're going to amend this soil to the best of my liking. There's not a, I wouldn't say there's an exact formula, but I'll kind of show you what I use on a normal basis. So we got the original soil. We'll continue to use this, nothing wrong with it. It's kind of just your generic, like looks like right out of the ground, honestly. But we'll just amend it. So I got some fresh. This is some Pro Mix, just some regular potting soil. It's got a little bit of perlite in there. And you see, this is a Pro Mix, the bale I've had for a while. I'm gonna add some extra perlite, and then we're gonna add some expanded shale to really help with that drainage. And you see I added a lot of that. That's okay, because we can always add more soil. But we're going to mix this up and get this to a consistency that I like. Now I'll probably have to do multiple batches of this for these three plants, because the root systems are a little bigger than I thought they had, honestly. Yeah. With something being that top heavy, you want to make sure you have plenty of weight on the bottom to make sure it doesn't fall over, honestly. I do use my cement mixer from time to time, but I don't feel like doing that today, so I'm just gonna do it by hand. Gonna work this together. Cool. That's a good mix. That's a good mix. I like it. Nice and chunky. Looks good to me for now. So I think we're going to do at least one of them in these 5-gallon square pots. I found these on Amazon. They're actually pretty nice. I've got some bigger desert roses I was using these for. So I've been kind of going all towards like using all square pots. So I feel like they are easier to put many more in, you know, easy to get more plants in a single space when there's not, you know, round edges versus square edges. I don't know. I'm OCD. So like if I go round pots, they're all round. If I go square, they're all square. So I found these 5-gallon square pots and they're really nice actually. So we're going to at least put one of them in here. I've got some bigger ones that we might have to use for these because they have bigger root flares. But when I looked at it, you don't want to go too much smaller than what the roots allow. So like even this is kind of small for it. I'm sure I'm going to hear in the comment section about, oh, that pot's not big enough. Well, I've only got so much room, dude. So, and then I'll probably sell a couple of these in the spring. So, but I mean, I could do some root pruning as well. But for now, I think we're just going to put these right here, like in that pot for now. Before I do that, I did find a little hack from a friend recently where we have pots that are using like a really well-draining soil. It has a lot of shale and chunkier mix. Your soil will start to come out the bottom. So what I started doing, and I learned this from a friend, he takes drywall tape. It's always hard to find the end because everything looks exactly the same. So he takes the drywall mesh, and instead of using like that bonsai mesh, take that, got your strip, and you just cover the bottom of the holes. Very bottom. So I'll tape up the entire bottom of this pot with this mesh so that all my stuff doesn't fall at the bottom. So kind of a cool trick, and that roll of mesh has lasted me a long time. So it's pretty cheap and you can get it very easily on Amazon or Home Depot or Lowe's, wherever you go. All right, so we're all taped up now. You can see the holes are all lined with that mesh. So we're good on that. Now, go ahead and we're gonna start potting this thing up. So something I'm always using when I do repotting is I have this Barron's little oil pan I've got right here. And I've got this stainless steel Lazy Susan. It's for like cake decorating, but it's really nice for when you're doing potting because you can have the plant rotate and it's just really convenient when you're doing it. So I highly recommend something like this because while I'm repotting, it's nice to be able to spin. And I could honestly, if I wanted to, go ahead and do some root pruning. And honestly, when you do any kind of pruning on these, it's kind of beneficial for the plant. It's like regenerative pruning, because if you do some root pruning, it's going to sprout out new roots. So maybe we'll do that real quick. Grab my bonsai shears. Oh, I love these little pruners. They're nice. They're like surgical steel or whatever. Got some isopropyl alcohol. Anytime you do any kind of cut, I'll make sure you sanitize your tools. So we'll go through and we'll just snip a little bit off here. Nothing, like we're not gonna go crazy. I mean, maybe just the stuff that's hanging off like really far, I'll just chop that off. Anything that might go up, that's not bad. Just help this go a little bit easier into the pot. Yeah, and we'll throw those cuttings right there into the pot. So, this one's calling me. Got the bottom after those cuttings in there. And I am going to start this whole thing off because these things do get top heavy. I'm gonna add a decent scoop of decomposed granite right at the bottom. You can do this with like gravel or whatever you want, just to add a little bit of weight to kind of help you keep this guy from falling over, you know? So, boom. You don't want to, you can plant these deeper if you like. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. I'm going to kind of go right there. So it's got about 6 inches in the soil. You can go even deeper if you'd like, but I'm going to keep it kind of right there at that flyer. before I forget. I use this every time I do transplanting. This is the Nelson Plant Food Nutristar Genesis. This is the first jar that I got from the owner of the company back in the day before I was even working for Nelson Plant Food. This was like their R&D jar. It was like, here, try this out. Let us know what you think. And I was like, after like 6 months, I was like, Dean, when can I start promoting this? And he's like, not yet, not yet. And so finally it came on the market and I can sell this as Genesis now. And that whole thing kind of turned into me working for Nelson Plant Food now. So like full circle, pretty wild how crazy things work out. So, but sprinkle a little bit at the bottom. It's gonna help with transplant shock. And then when I get a little bit higher up on the potting, see how I can just spin it? That's how nice that is. When I get a little bit higher up on the potting, I'm gonna add a little bit more. So like that's pretty good right there. And I'm not going to do any like real fertilizing right now. I would normally, I want to say I use plumeria food for this guy. I think I use plumeria food for my other ones. I've got a couple other of these Buddha bellies in the backyard. Got one actually is pretty big. It's a yellow one. I didn't realize the yellow ones are really hard to find. I found mine like randomly in Nederland, Texas, over at Kimmy's Fantastic Plants. So yeah. Pretty awesome actually. But I'm taking this, I usually use a chopstick because this is a bigger planter, so I'm using a piece of bamboo to go down and really kind of get the soil to settle. You'll get air pockets and stuff like that whenever you're doing potting, and so adding or using a little like a stick or a chopstick or a piece of bamboo like this to kind of settle the soil. You know, even like doing the planter to planter, tap, 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 taparoo is nice as well. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more of that Genesis now. And there's instructions on this on the website. I kind of sprinkle to flavor, like seasoning, you know. I feel like it helps pretty well. But yeah, so in the spring, I would start to fertilize these with either, I wanna say the plumeria food is what I use. I use plumeria food, Nelson Plant Food, plumeria food for all my flowering succulents like my plumerias, desert roses, and even my portulacas and things like that. Anything flowering. So maybe a half a scoop more. That's pretty good actually. Pack it in nice and tight. Get in there. Get in there. And I am in the front yard because my neighborhood has gotten very loud like recently. My neighbor's dog is a jackass, always barking and stuff. So yeah, that's nice and sturdy. That's what I'm looking for. It's not toppling over. The pot isn't toppling over. And what we're going to do to even give it a little bit more stability is I'm going to go through and, you know, I got that scoop of DG earlier, the decomposed granite. For the bottom, I'm going to grab a scoop on top. And what this is going to help with, not only is it going to help weigh it down a little bit, but it's also going to help for when we're watering this plant, we're not hitting the soil, because when you hit the soil, it has a tendency to splash it off, you know, run over. But having like some gravel or some DG on top, one more scoop. Is going to help from the soil washing away. And I really like this. I really like this plant. These Buddha bellies are really unique plants. You don't see them in gardens very often. In Texas, you'll see them a little more commonly, but it's very rare. And to see them this size is pretty wild. Like, you don't get them this big very often, but apparently growing them in the ground is where it's at. So I will probably be putting at least one of these in the ground next year, probably up in the front flower bed, and see what my HOA says. Yeah, it's beautiful, freaking beautiful. We're gonna make a label for this. I used to get really fancy with my labels, but now using a pencil, I actually like this Write in the Rain pencil. It's really cool. But I just use pencil, and make sure you're writing on the rough end of the label. These are really nice 6-inch labels. I get these on Amazon, and they're like, come like a 100 pack, and they're reusable. So you can just take some acetone and clean it off. But I love using these labels and this pencil method because the pencil doesn't really mark off. It doesn't really come off. So we're gonna write Jatropha podagrica. And there's a lot of plants in the Jatropha family. The Jatropha, this is just the Jatropha podagrica. There's a lot of plants in there. There's a baseball plant. I've got some other Jatrophas in the backyard, and it's a really interesting species of plant that are from South America that do really well here in Texas. All right, so that is it. We've got 1 down, 2 to go. I'll make sure to get all those wrapped up. These are not cold tolerant. Like I was saying, the guy who I got these from was pulling these up because they have to be brought in for the winter. But until it actually is gonna freeze, you're fine. Like, I don't bring my plumerias in unless we're gonna get an actual freeze. Like, I've had my plumerias and everything else down to like 35, 34. As long as we're not gonna get a freeze, something like this, I'm not gonna take a chance. So I'm gonna put these in the pot. They'll go in a shady spot. I'm gonna water them in. They're gonna go in a really shady spot to kind of recover from this stress of being planted. They've already been kind of stressed out from being dug up and then redug up in the last week or two. So that Genesis is gonna really help out with the transplant shock. I've learned and noticed that Genesis really helps out with that. But we're gonna get the other 2 replanted and then put them in a shady spot, water them in, and kind of leave them there until about a week or 2. And then they'll go into the greenhouse. So they'll stay dormant pretty much all winter. And then, like I said, I'm not going to keep all these. I'm going to probably turn around and sell 1 or 2 of them in the spring, or if I have a family member that really wants one, or a friend, if there's someone on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube that really wants some of these, let me know. I'll probably have a couple available in the spring for the show, and they'll be doing even better than this. So hope you all enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. This one's a lot easier to pick up. It's still pretty heavy, but not as heavy as that big one by far.